Sit down, not because you are weak, but because what you are about to hear is heavy. Sit down because when truth arrives unannounced, the soul needs a place to rest while the heart wakes up. Sit down because this is not noise, this is not entertainment, this is not another message you scroll past and forget. This is a warning wrapped in mercy, a shaking disguised as love, a moment where eternity taps you on the shoulder and says, listen, if your heart is still beating, if your breath has not left your body, if your eyes can still see these words, then God is not finished with you. And what you are about to hear is not comfortable, but it is necessary. There are moments in life when God does not whisper. There are moments when God does not gently suggest. There are moments when God interrupts. This is one of those moments. Because you have been moving, striving, planning, worrying, running, chasing, building, surviving, but you have not been listening. You have been busy with your hands while your spirit has been starving, busy with your schedule while your soul has been empty, busy proving things to people who will never decide your destiny. And now God is calling, not tomorrow, not someday, now. And when God calls, it is not to impress you, it is to correct you, align you, awaken you, and prepare you. Imagine for a moment that your phone rings and every distraction around you goes silent. The noise of fear stops. The voices of doubt are muted. The opinions of people lose their volume. And on the other end of that call is not condemnation, but clarity. Not accusation, but direction. Not anger, but authority. A call that does not ask how you feel, but reveals who you are becoming. A call that does not comfort your excuses, but confronts your delay. A call that says, I have watched you long enough. Now listen carefully. God is not calling you because you are perfect. God is calling you because time is moving faster than you think. You have been telling yourself, later, later I will obey, later I will change, later I will take faith seriously, later I will step out, later I will forgive, later I will stop compromising, later I will pray with sincerity, later I will stop living divided. But later has become a hiding place. Later has become your shelter from responsibility. Later has become the place where destiny goes to sleep. And God is saying, later is no longer available. There is a weight in this moment because you are standing at the edge of something irreversible. Not destruction, but decision. The kind of decision that separates who you have been from who you are meant to become. And the danger is not that you will fail. The danger is that you will delay until opportunity passes quietly, without drama, without warning, without another chance. God does not always shout when seasons change. Sometimes the door closes softly while you are still negotiating with fear. You have been asking God for signs, but God has been asking you for surrender. You have been asking for confirmation, but God has been waiting for obedience. You have been asking for clarity, but God has been watching how you handle the clarity you already have. Because revelation without response becomes responsibility ignored. And responsibility ignored becomes regret. God is not interested in how emotional you feel in spiritual moments. God is interested in how faithful you are when no one is watching. This call from God is not about information. It is about transformation. Not about excitement, but alignment. God is saying, I am about to move you, but you cannot carry what you are carrying into where I am taking you. There are thoughts you must release, habits you must break, attachments you must let go of, voices you must stop listening to, because you cannot hear God clearly while you are addicted to noise. You cannot walk straight while entertaining compromise. You cannot step into purpose while protecting comfort. You have mistaken patience for permission. You have mistaken silence for approval. You have mistaken delay for denial. But God has been watching, measuring, refining. There are things God did not stop because stopping them would have robbed you of growth. There are doors God did not open because opening them early would have destroyed you. And there are doors God is about to open that will require a version of you that you have not yet become. That is why this call is urgent. God is not calling to scare you. God is calling to save you from wasting your life on things that do not matter. You have been pouring energy into proving yourself to people who do not know your value. You have been carrying guilt that God never asked you to carry. You have been replaying failures that God already forgave. And while you are looking backward, opportunity is approaching from the front, but you will miss it if you do not lift your head. This is the part where God speaks plainly, not poetically, not symbolically, plainly. God is saying, stop living divided. Stop being one person in public and another in private. Stop speaking faith while feeding fear. Stop praying for change while protecting the very things that keep you stuck. You cannot pray your way out of what you refuse to walk away from. And you cannot expect different results while repeating the same disobedience. You have been telling yourself that you are tired, but what you are is distracted. You have been telling yourself that you are confused, but what you are is double-minded. You have been telling yourself that you are waiting on God, but God has been waiting on you, waiting for you to stop negotiating with fear, waiting for you to stop asking for guarantees before you move, waiting for you to trust that obedience always makes sense later, even when it feels risky now. God is about to reposition you, and repositioning always feels like disruption before it feels like purpose. Things will shift, relationships will change, familiar patterns will break. Not because God is removing love, but because God is removing limitation. Some people cannot go with you where God is taking you because they are attached to the version of you that God is ending. And you must be strong enough to let go without becoming bitter. This call from God is also a warning, not a threat, but a wake up. Because you are closer than you think to becoming numb to conviction, numb to urgency, numb to wonder, numb to gratitude, numb to purpose. You have normalized survival when you were created for significance. You have learned how to cope when you were meant to overcome. And if you are not careful, you will settle into a life that is comfortable but empty, busy but meaningless, safe but small. God did not design you to merely exist. God designed you to carry responsibility, to influence, to steward, to build, to heal, to restore, to reflect truth through the way you live. And that requires courage. Courage to say no when everything in you wants to say yes. Courage to stand alone when standing alone is the only way to stand right. Courage to obey even when obedience costs you convenience, popularity, or temporary security. You have underestimated how closely God has been watching your hidden choices. Not to punish you, but to prepare you. Because private discipline always precedes public authority. Private obedience always precedes visible impact. If you cannot be trusted with silence, you will not be trusted with influence. If you cannot be faithful in obscurity, you will not be stable in exposure. God is not impressed by performance. God is moved by purity of intention. There is something God wants to place in your hands, but your hands must be clean and open. Clean from resentment, clean from pride, clean from deceit. Open to release what you have been gripping out of fear. Because fear clenches the fist, but faith opens the hand. And God fills open hands, not clenched ones. You have been praying for peace while feeding anxiety. You have been praying for direction while refusing correction. You have been praying for breakthrough while avoiding discipline. This call is God saying, G, I am ready when you are ready. Not ready emotionally, ready obediently, ready to stop making excuses, ready to stop blaming your past, ready to stop waiting for someone else to change first, ready to move even when your voice shakes. God knows the weight you have been carrying silently, the nights you could not sleep, the questions you never spoke out loud, the fear of failing again, the fear of being seen, the fear of not being enough. And God is not disappointed in your weakness. God is inviting you to exchange it for trust, because strength does not come from pretending you are fearless. Strength comes from moving forward while acknowledging fear but refusing to obey it. This is not the season to blend in. This is not the season to play small. This is not the season to hide behind humility that is actually fear in disguise. God is calling you to step forward with integrity, with courage, with clarity, not loudly, not arrogantly, but firmly, with a spine strengthened by truth and a heart softened by compassion. You are about to be tested in subtle ways, not dramatic battles, but quiet compromises, small decisions, hidden moments, private shortcuts. And those moments will decide more than public victories ever could, because destiny is shaped in the unseen. God is warning you now so that you do not destroy tomorrow for the sake of today. Listen carefully. Not everything that feels good is good for you. Not every opportunity is assigned to you. Not every open door adds to purpose. Some doors are distractions dressed as blessings. Some connections are delays disguised as relationships. And discernment is not about what looks right, but about what aligns with what God has already spoken to your conscience. This call from God is also reassurance. You are not late, you are not forgotten, you are not overlooked, you are not disqualified, but you are responsible. Responsible for what you do next. Responsible for what you allow to continue. Responsible for whether you answer the call or silence it with distraction. There will not always be this intensity. There will not always be this clarity. Moments like this are gifts. Moments when the fog lifts, when the heart is stirred, when truth feels close enough to touch. Do not waste this moment by promising change without practicing obedience. Do not say you will remember this later. Later is the enemy of now. God is not asking you to have all the answers. God is asking you to take the next right step. Not 10 steps. 1, the step you have been avoiding, the conversation you have been postponing, the habit you have been excusing, the discipline you have been resisting, the forgiveness you have been withholding. That step is the doorway. If you answer this call, life will not become easier, but it will become clearer. You will lose some things, but you will gain alignment. You will face resistance, but you walk with purpose. You will feel stretched, but you will not be empty. Because obedi. NCE fills places that comfort never could. God is not impressed by how loudly you agree. God is moved by how consistently you act. This is not about emotion. This is about decision. A decision to live awake. A decision to live honest. A decision to live aligned. A decision to stop silencing conviction and start honoring it. There is a version of you that exists on the other side of obedience that you have not met yet. Stronger, clearer, calmer, more grounded, less reactive, more discerning. And that version of you is not created by wishing, but by walking, step by step, choice by choice, day by day. God is calling because your life carries weight beyond you. People you will never meet will be affected by whether you answer or ignore this call. Choices echo, obedience multiplies, integrity reproduces, and compromise spreads faster than you think. This is bigger than a moment. bigger than a feeling, bigger than fear. The call is still ringing, not audibly, but internally. In the place where truth settles, when everything else goes quiet, you can ignore it, you can explain it away, you can delay it, or you can answer it with action, not with words, with movement, with courage, with surrender. God is not asking for perfection. God is asking for willingness. A willing heart can be shaped. A willing mind can be renewed. A willing life can be redirected. But an unwilling spirit will remain stuck, no matter how much potential it carries. This is your moment to stop drifting and start deciding, to stop reacting and start responding, to stop consuming and start contributing, to stop surviving and start stewarding what has been placed in you. God is speaking because God trusts you with this moment. The call does not end here. It continues in what you do after this. In the silence, in the ordinary, in the choices no one applauds, in the discipline no one sees, in the obedience that feels small but carries eternal weight. And as you move, as you choose, as you align, you will realize that the call was never about information. It was about transformation already unfolding in the quiet courage of your next step, your next decision, your next act of obedience. Even now, as your heart is stirred and your mind is awakened and your spirit leans forward toward what God has been waiting to release through you. Do not mistake this stirring in your spirit as mere emotion. Emotion fades, but conviction reshapes destiny. What you are feeling now is the weight of accountability meeting the invitation of mercy. God is not only calling you forward, God is calling you deeper. Deeper than surface level faith, deeper than borrowed beliefs, deeper than routines that look spiritual but lack surrender. God is drawing a line between knowing about Him and truly aligning your life under His authority. And alignment always costs something before it produces everything. There are seasons when God allows comfort, and there are seasons when God disrupts comfort to preserve calling. This is not a season of rest for the sake of ease. This is a season of awakening for the sake of purpose. God is not dismantling your life to harm you, but to remove structures that cannot hold the weight of where you are going. Some things that once worked will no longer work. Some methods that once brought results will now bring resistance. That is not failure, that is transition. You must understand this truth deeply. God's warnings are evidence of God's care. Silence would be abandonment, but correction is proof of attention. God corrects what He intends to use. God refines what He intends to trust. And right now, you are being trusted with awareness. Awareness of your patterns, awareness of your distractions, awareness of the gap between who you are and who you are becoming. Do not run from that awareness. Lean into it. God sees the silent battles you fight that no one applauds, the restraint you practice when retaliation would feel satisfying, the discipline you choose when laziness would feel easier, the honesty you maintain when deception would benefit you temporarily. Those moments are not small. Heaven records what the world ignores, and God measures faithfulness not by how visible it is, but by how consistent it remains when recognition is absent. You are entering a season where discernment will matter more than desire. Many things will look appealing. Many opportunities will seem promising. Many voices will offer advice. But not everything that shines is a sig. God is sharpening your inner hearing so you do not confuse excitement with instruction. Peace will become your compass. Alignment will become your confirmation. And urgency without clarity will be a sign to wait. God is also warning you about comparison. Comparison steals gratitude and replaces it with restlessness. It makes you despise your pace and distrust your process. But God has never needed you to outrun others, only to obey Him. Speed without direction leads to exhaustion. Slow obedience still arrives at purpose. Your path is specific. Your timing is intentional. Your process is customized. What looks like delay is often protection. There are prayers you stopped praying because you convinced yourself they were unrealistic. Dreams you buried because disappointment taught you to lower your expectations. But God never asked you to shrink what He planted. He asked you to steward it with patience and integrity. Dreams delayed are not dreams denied, but dreams neglected will fade. This call is God breathing on what you assumed was dead and asking if you are willing to nurture it again with faith instead of fear. You must also confront this truth. Obedience will separate you, not because you are superior, but because alignment always creates distinction. When you choose integrity, some will misunderstand you. When you choose restraint, some will mock you. When you choose faithfulness, some will distance themselves. Do not interpret isolation as rejection. Sometimes go, D removes noise so you can hear direction clearly. God is also calling you to maturity. Not spiritual excitement, but spiritual stability. Stability that does not collapse under pressure. Stability that does not change convictions based on convenience. Stability that remains grounded when outcomes are uncertain. Emotional faith reacts to circumstances. Mature faith responds with trust. God is shaping you to be dependable under weight, not just passionate in moments. You have been asking God to remove obstacles, but God has been strengthening you to overcome them. Because what you conquer shapes your character. And character determines how far blessing can safely flow through you. God will not pour abundance into hands that lack discipline, nor influence into hearts that lack humility. What feels like resistance is often preparation. This call is also about your words. Life follows language. What you repeatedly declare shapes what you repeatedly expect. God is calling you to align your speech with truth, not fear. Stop agreeing with limitation. Stop rehearsing defeat. Stop labeling yourself by past mistakes. Speak with awareness that your words are seeds. And seeds, once planted, grow even if you forget about them. God is not distant in this process. God is present in every step you take toward alignment. When you feel unsure, that is not abandonment. It is an invitation to trust. When you feel stretched, that is not punishment. It is expansion. When you feel exposed, not shame. It is refinement. God works deeply before He works widely. There will be moments ahead where obedience feels lonely, where progress feels invisible, where discipline feels unrewarded. In those moments, remember this: God never wastes faithfulness. What is done in obedience accumulates unseen strength. And suddenly, without warning, alignment produces acceleration. What once took years begins to happen swiftly, not because you rushed, but because you were ready. You are being prepared to carry answers for others, not through preaching, but through presence, through consistency, through wisdom gained by choosing truth when it was inconvenient. People will observe your restraint. They will notice your peace. They will sense your stability. And without you announcing it, your life will point to God's guidance. This is also a call to release control. Control feels like safety, but it limits growth. Trust feels risky, but it multiplies outcomes. God does not ask you to understand every step, only to take the next one with humility. Control closes the heart. Trust opens it, and God moves most freely in open hearts. God is reminding you now that time is sacred, not to rush you, but to awaken you. Every day carries potential that cannot be stored for later use. Presence matters, attention matters, faithfulness in the ordinary matters. Do not wait for a dramatic moment to live aligned. Alignment is practiced daily, quietly, consistently. You are not being called to impress God. You are being called to reflect God's order in how you live, through honesty, through restraint, through courage, through patience, through faithfulness when no one is watching. That reflection is what transforms environments. That reflection is what shifts atmospheres. That reflection is what creates legacy. God is still speaking, not through noise, but through conviction, not through pressure, but through clarity. And the more you respond, the clearer it becomes. This call is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to anchor you in truth, anchor you in purpose, anchor you in direction. As you continue forward, you will notice old temptations losing their grip, old fears losing their authority, old patterns losing their appeal. Not because you fought them aggressively, but because alignment starved them of attention. What you stop feeding eventually weakens. What you start honoring gains strength. God is shaping you into someone who does not panic under uncertainty, someone who does not compromise under pressure, someone who does not collapse when outcomes are delayed. That kind of stability cannot be taught. It is formed through obedience, and you are in the middle of that formation now. The call you sensed at the beginning has not faded. It has deepened. It has moved from urgency to resolve, from emotion to intention, from awareness to responsibility. And as you continue to walk, even when it feels quiet, even when affirmation is absent, even when rest feels slow, you will realize that God was not only calling you to listen, but calling you to become aligned with truth so fully that your life itself becomes a response, unfolding step by step, choice by choice, as God continues to guide, correct, strengthen, and shape you into what you were always meant to carry and release into the world through faithful obedience and unwavering trust in God alone. Do not underestimate the seriousness of this hour. There are moments God allows to pass gently, and there are moments God marks with gravity. This is a marked moment. Not because danger is imminent, but because destiny is near. When God draws close to correct, it is because advancement is approaching. Correction is not rejection, it is preparation for promotion of responsibility. God does not elevate what cannot endure weight, and the weight coming is not pressure. It is purpose. You must understand that God is not shaping your circumstances first. God is shaping your discernment, because circumstances change, but discernment sustains. When discernment is sharpened, confusion loses power. When discernment is clear, temptation reveals itself early. God is training your spirit to sense misalignment before it becomes damage. This is why certain things no longer feel right, even though they once did. Your tolerance is decreasing because your calling is increasing. God is also exposing false urgency. Not everything that pressures you deserves a response. Not every demand is divine. The world rushes, but God orders. Panic is never a signal from God. Peace carries instruction. If something demands haste, but robs you of clarity, pause. God does not compete with chaos. God speaks where stillness is honored. There are doors that will open soon, but some of them will test your integrity rather than reward it. They will offer speed without depth, recognition without responsibility, gain without grounding. God is warning you now, so you do not trade long-term purpose for short-term validation. What God builds through patience lasts. What is built through impulse collapses. You have reached a point where excuses no longer satisfy your own conscience. That discomfort is sacred. That unease is holy tension. It is the signal that growth is required. God is not condemning you for where you are. God is calling you higher than where you have settled. Settling is not rest. Settling is resignation. And God did not design you to merely cope. God is awakening courage in you that does not announce itself loudly. Quiet courage, steady courage. Courage that chooses what is right even when it is unseen. This courage does not depend on applause. It is rooted in reverence. Reverence for truth, reverence for accountability, reverence for God's presence in every moment, even the ordinary ones. You must also prepare for pruning. Growth always attracts pruning, not because something is wrong, but because something is growing. God removes what drains life, so what remains can be. Ear more fruit. Some relationships will fade. Some habits will lose appeal. Some ambitions will be reshaped. Do not cling to what God is releasing. Letting go is not loss when God is the one guiding the process. God is also confronting hidden pride, the pride that resists correction, the pride that avoids accountability, the pride that disguises itself as independence. True humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking rightly about your dependence on God. Pride isolates, humility aligns, and alignment attracts guidance. There is a discipline God is inviting you into, not punishment, but structure. Structure protects focus. Structure guards peace. Structure sustains growth. Freedom without discipline leads to chaos. Discipline without purpose leads to exhaustion. God provides both purpose and order so that your energy is not wasted. You are being trained to respond, not react. Reaction is emotional. Response is intentional. Reaction is driven by impulse. Response is guided by wisdom. God is slowing your internal pace so your decisions can carry weight. Quick answers feel powerful, but thoughtful obedience carries authority. God is also reminding you that provision follows alignment, not anxiety. Worry never produced clarity. Fear never generated wisdom. Trust unlocks provision because it aligns your actions with truth. When you move in alignment, what you need meets you along the way. Not always early, but always on time. There will be moments where obedience feels unrewarded, where silence follows faithfulness, where effort seems unnoticed. Those moments test whether you are driven by outcome or obedience. God watches how you respond when reward is delayed, because delayed reward reveals true motive. God is also teaching you to guard your inner life. What you allow to dwell in your thoughts shapes your endurance. If your mind is constantly fed with fear, your strength will drain. If your mind is anchored in truth, resilience will grow. Guarding your thoughts is not denial, it is stewardship. You are entering a phase where wisdom will outweigh talent. Skill opens doors, but wisdom keeps them open. Talent attracts attention, but wisdom sustains influence. God is refining your understanding so you are not impressive but unstable. Stability is more valuable than charisma. God is also inviting you to forgive without explanation. Not because the offense was small, but because your freedom is large. Unforgiveness ties your future to someone else's past. Release unties you. Forgiveness does not excuse behavior. It releases burden. And God never intended you to carry what poisons your peace. This call is also about faithfulness in small things. What you do consistently matters more than what you do occasionally. Grand moments inspire, but daily obedience transforms. God watches the small choices because they shape the big outcomes. You may not see immediate change, but change has already begun. Alignment starts internally before it manifests externally. What shifts within you eventually shifts around you. Be patient with the process. Growth does not announce itself. It reveals itself over time. God is shaping endurance in you. Not endurance that hardens the heart, but endurance that strengthens trust. Endurance that remains soft, teachable, responsive. Hardness resists growth. Softness receives guidance. God works best in hearts that remain open under pressure. You are being prepared to carry influence without losing humility. Influence tests character more than obscurity ever could. God refines you now, so influence does not distort you later. Integrity must grow faster than visibility. There is also a call to consistency. Consistency in values, consistency in discipline, consistency in truth. Consistency builds credibility. Without consistency, even truth loses impact. God honors steady obedience more than dramatic declarations. You are not meant to figure everything out alone. God often confirms direction through wisdom, reflection, and stillness. Do not isolate yourself from reflection. Silence is not emptiness, it is space for clarity. As you continue, you will notice an internal strengthening. Fear will still speak, but it will no longer lead. Doubt will still appear, but it will no longer dominate. God is not removing challenges. God is changing who you are while facing them. This call continues beyond words. It moves into choices. It moves into restraint. It moves into courage. It moves into patience. It moves into obedience that feels quiet but carries eternal weight. And as you walk forward, not perfectly but faithfully, you will sense that what once felt like a warning has become a steady guidance, shaping each step, refining each decision, deepening each moment of trust. As God continues to draw you into alignment with truth, purpose, and responsibility, unfolding not in sudden noise, but in deliberate movement. As your life becomes increasingly ordered, resilient, discerning, and anchored in unwavering awareness of God's presence and authority over every step you take and every choice you make, as the journey continues without pause or retreat. Now hear this with clarity and let it settle without resistance. This call was never about fear, and it was never about spectacle. It was about alignment. God has been drawing you out of confusion and into order, out of hesitation and into resolve, out of noise and into discernment. What you felt stirring was not pressure from outside, but truth awakening from within. God does not chase attention. God establishes direction, and direction has now been given. You are not leaving this moment empty-handed. You are leaving with responsibility. Responsibility to live awake. Responsibility to guard what has been entrusted to you. Responsibility to walk with intention rather than impulse. God has spoken because God expects movement. Not perfection, but obedience. Not haste, but faithfulness. Not performance, but integrity. What happens next will be shaped less by what you felt and more by what you choose. From this moment forward, you will recognize when something is misaligned more quickly. You will feel restraint where you once felt ease. You will sense clarity where confusion once ruled. That is not loss, it is maturity. God has recalibrated your inner compass. Trust it. Do not override it for comfort. Do not silence it for approval. That inner witness is protection. Remember this, obedience will not always feel powerful in the moment, but it will always produce strength over time. God is not asking you to leap blindly. God is asking you to walk deliberately, step by step, choice by choice, truth over convenience, faith over fear, discipline over impulse. Each step compounds, each choice builds. Nothing aligned is wasted. You are not walking into uncertainty alone. God goes before you in wisdom, walks beside you in strength, and steadies you from within through conviction. When doubts arise, return to alignment. When pressure increases, return to truth. When temptation whispers, return to reverence. God does not withdraw guidance for those who remain willing. Let your life now speak louder than your intentions. Let consistency replace promises. Let discipline replace emotion. Let obedience replace delay. This is how calling is honored. This is how purpose unfolds. This is how peace becomes unshakable. And as you move forward, quietly but firmly, you will realize that the warning was also an invitation, the correction was also protection, and the call was never distant. It was always near, guiding you into steadiness, into clarity, into responsibility, and into a life ordered by truth, where each step carries meaning, each choice carries weight, and each day becomes a lived response to God alone. Listen to me carefully. This is not an accident that you are hearing these words right now. This moment did not find you by chance, and this message did not reach you randomly. God has already stepped into your future, and what He saw there compelled Him to speak now, before your doubts could silence you, before fear could talk you out of obedience, before delay could steal your destiny. God released a word over your life. And that word is not small, it is not timid, and it is not symbolic. God said you will be a future billionaire, not as a fantasy, not as a wish, but as an assignment. If that statement shakes you, it is because something powerful just collided with the limitations you have accepted for too long. Some of you are already arguing with this word in your mind. You are looking at your bank balance, your background, your education, your mistakes, your age, your location, and you are saying, this cannot be for me. But God never starts with where you are. He starts with where He is taking you. God does not consult your past to decide your future. He speaks from eternity into time, and when He speaks with authority. The same God who created abundance out of nothing is not intimidated by your lack. The same God who placed riches in the earth before humans existed is not worried about your current limitations. When God says you will be a future billionaire, He is not asking for your permission. He is announcing His intention. You understand this deeply. Wealth in God's hands is not about luxury, ego, or personal applause. Wealth is influence. Wealth is reach. Wealth is capacity. God does not raise people to high financial places so they can sit comfortably while the world struggles. God raises people so solutions can flow through them. God is looking for carriers, people He can trust with resources because their hearts are aligned with His purpose. And that is why this word is coming to you now. Before the wealth comes, God must shape the vessel. Before the billions move into your hands, God must remove small thinking from your spirit. Many people want the outcome of wealth, but resist the process that produces it. They want overflow without obedience, reward without discipline, increase without transformation. But God does not skip steps. When God declares something over your future, He immediately begins to work on your character, your mindset, and your habits. This is why some of you feel uncomfortable lately. Old ways of thinking no longer satisfy you. Small goals feel suffocating. Comfort feels like a trap. That restlessness is not confusion, it is preparation. God is expanding your capacity because what is coming cannot fit into the version of you that used to set. God is not calling you to chase money, He is calling you to chase alignment. Money follows obedience, provision follows purpose, increase follows stewardship. When God entrusts wealth, He looks for people who understand that everything they hold is temporary and accountable. He looks for people who can manage little without complaining and handle much without pride. That is why your current season matters. How you treat what you have now reveals whether you are ready for what is coming. If you are careless now, wealth will destroy you later. But if you are faithful now, wealth will multiply through you later. Some of you have been faithful in secret. You have done the right thing when no one noticed. You have remained honest when shortcuts were available. You have given, helped, supported, and endured without applause. And you wondered if God saw it. Hear this clearly. God never misses obedience. God never forgets sacrifice. God never overlooks faithfulness. When God says you will be a future billionaire, He is responding to seeds you planted long before you understood their value. What you call loss, God called investment. What you call delay, God called development. But let me speak with clarity and authority now. Wealth does not come to those who fear responsibility. If you are afraid of responsibility, you will sabotage increase. God's blessings expand responsibility, not remove it. When God increases you, more people depend on your decisions, your wisdom, and your integrity. That is why God is strengthening your inner life now. He is teaching you to think long-term, to act wisely, and to respond with patience. Emotional reactions cannot manage massive wealth. Impulsive decisions cannot sustain billion-level influence. God is training you to move with wisdom, not emotion. Many people pray for wealth but secretly fear visibility. But you cannot steward billions in hiding. Wealth brings exposure. Influence brings scrutiny. Authority brings opposition. God is preparing you to stand firm when misunderstood, criticized, or envied. Some of the pressure you are feeling now is not meant to break you. It is meant to reveal where you still seek approval from people instead of approval from God. When God elevates you, not everyone will celebrate. You must be anchored in God's voice, not human applause. Let me correct a dangerous belief right now. Humility is not thinking small. Humility is thinking accurately. It is not humility to reject what God has declared over you. It is not humility to say, I am not worthy, when God has already chosen you. True humility is agreeing with God even when His word stretches you. When God says you will be a future billionaire, humility says, then teach me how to carry it. Pride says, I deserve this. Fear says, this cannot be me. Faith says, I will become who this assignment requires. God often chooses people who have known lack because they understand the weight of provision. They know what it means to struggle, to wait, to stretch resources, to trust God when nothing makes sense. That history becomes wisdom. That pain becomes perspective. That experience becomes compassion. God does not raise people randomly. He raises them intentionally. Your story is not a disadvantage. It is your qualification. What you survived did not disqualify you, it trained you. You must understand that billion-level wealth is not built overnight. God works through process, strategy, patience, and consistency. He will open doors, but you must walk through them. He will give ideas, but you must execute them. He will send connections, but you must honor them. Divine favor does not replace discipline. It multiplies it. God's blessing does not excuse laziness. It empowers diligence. If you are waiting for a miracle that requires no effort, you misunderstand how God works. God partners with obedience. Right now, God is sharpening your discernment. He is teaching you to say no to distractions that look good but lead nowhere. Not every opportunity is your assignment. Not every open door is your door. Wealth is lost when people chase everything instead of focusing on what God assigned them. Focus is a form of obedience. When God speaks direction, He expects commitment. Half-hearted obedience delays full results. Some of you feel like your progress has been slow, but slow growth is still growth. God values depth over speed. Fast money without wisdom creates collapse. Slow, steady building creates longevity. God is more interested in sustaining your future than rushing your present. What He is building in you must last longer than you. When God increases you, the impact should outlive you. That is the level of thinking God is inviting you into now. Let me speak to your mindset, billionaires. Do not think in survival. They think in systems. God is teaching you to stop thinking paycheck to paycheck and start thinking legacy to legacy. Survival thinking asks, how do I get through this? Purpose thinking asks, what can I build that will serve many? God is expanding your vision because vision determines capacity. Small vision limits provision. Large vision attracts resources. When your vision aligns with God's heart, provision follows naturally. You must also understand that wealth tests character more than lack ever could. Lack reveals patience. Wealth reveals discipline. Lack teaches trust. Wealth tests stewardship. God will not give you something that destroys your soul. That is why He is teaching you now how to remain grounded, generous, and grateful. Gratitude protects wealth. Generosity sustains wealth. Obedience multiplies wealth. When God sees that resources will not replace Him in your heart, He releases more. There will be seasons where you feel isolated. That is not rejection, that is refinement. God often separates people before He elevates them. Noise disrupts clarity. Distractions weaken focus. God pulls you aside so He can speak clearly. The silence is not abandonment, it is instruction. Pay attention in quiet seasons. That is where strategies are formed, habits are refined, and vision is clarified. Let me be clear, not everyone around you can go where God is taking you. Some relationships cannot handle the weight of your calling. Some people prefer the version of you that did not threaten their comfort. Do not confuse loyalty with limitation. God sometimes removes people not because they are bad, but because they cannot grow with you. Release without bitterness. Move forward without guilt. God's plan is bigger than your need to be understood. As God increases you, He will test your obedience in small instructions. He may ask you to give when it does not make sense, to wait when you want to rush, to speak when you want to stay silent, or to move when you feel comfortable. Obedience is the language of trust. When God sees immediate obedience, He releases greater responsibility. Delayed obedience delays increase. Some of you have been receiving ideas that feel too big for your current resources. That is because God always gives vision before provision. If He gave you everything first, you would rely on resources instead of Him. Vision pulls you forward. Faith keeps you moving. Obedience builds momentum. The gap between where you are and where God is taking you is crossed by consistent action, not sudden leaps. Understand this, God's promises are not activated by emotion, but by alignment. Feeling inspired is not enough. Feeling motivated is not enough. You must build habits that match your calling. Future billionaires think differently, plan differently, speak differently, and act differently long before wealth appears. Your daily decisions are either preparing you or postponing you. God watches what you do when no one else is watching. Do not despise discipline. Discipline is not punishment, it is training. God disciplines those He prepares for influence. You cannot manage billions with chaos. Order attracts increase. Consistency attracts trust. Integrity attracts favor. Go. D is shaping you into someone others can rely on. Trust is the true currency of wealth. Without trust, money cannot stay. There will be moments when fear tries to return. Fear will remind you of your past, your failures, your limitations. When that happens, remind fear of God's authority. Fear is not a sign that you are off track. It is a sign that you are approaching something significant. Fear appears when old identities are threatened. Let fear know that you are no longer negotiating with limitation. God has already spoken. There is another dimension of this calling that must be spoken plainly, because many hear the promise but misunderstand the weight attached to it. When God declares wealth over a person's future, He is also declaring war on everything in them that cannot survive abundance. Poverty is not only a condition of finances, it is often a condition of thinking. God is not only interested in changing what is in your hands, He is determined to change what is in your mind. Because if your thinking remains small, wealth will either never arrive or will quickly leave. God is therefore confronting mindsets, breaking mental ceilings, and dismantling beliefs you absorbed from environments that never imagined more. Some of you were raised around limitation, and limitation taught you to play safe, to avoid risk, to fear failure. But the God who speaks to you now is not a God of fear. He's a God of intention and order. He designs outcomes before processes begin. He establishes ends before beginnings. That means your future was settled before your present ever challenged you. God already saw you handling more than you currently believe you can manage, and that is why He is stretching you beyond comfort. Comfort preserves the familiar. Calling demands transformation. God is also training you to understand timing. Wealth is not released when desire is loud. It is released when maturity is complete. Some doors stay closed not because God is withholding, but because entering too early would harm you. God is protecting you from premature exposure. He is teaching you patience not as delay, but as precision. When God moves, He moves at the exact moment when alignment, readiness, and opportunity converge. Nothing is wasted and nothing is late. You must also recognize that God often uses resistance as confirmation. When you begin to move toward what God has spoken, opposition increases, not to stop you, but to test your resolve. Resistance reveals seriousness. If you quit easily, you were never ready for the responsibility wealth demands. God is watching how you respond to pressure. Do you retreat or do you refine? Do you complain or do you adapt? Billion-level influence requires resilience that does not break under strain. Another truth you must embrace is that God's way of building wealth is often unconventional. He may lead you where logic feels thin, but obedience feels strong. He may guide you to build what others doubt, to invest where others hesitate, to persist when others walk away. God does not need popular approval to produce powerful results. He only needs your obedience. History is shaped by those who listen to God more than they listen to the crowd. God is also teaching you silence. Not everything He reveals to you must be shared immediately. Some visions are sacred and must be protected until they mature. Premature exposure invites unnecessary interference. Learn to carry God's instructions with reverence. Speak when God instructs you to speak. Move when God instructs you to move. Silence, when guided by wisdom, is strength, not fear. As your calling expands, God will also refine your relationships with money itself. Money is a tool, not a master. When money becomes identity, it enslaves. When it remains a servant, it empowers. God will test whether you can hold resources without being owned by them. True wealth is not measured by accumulation alone, but by control. Can you give freely? Can you walk away when God redirects you? Can you remain content even as increase flows? These are the questions God answers before releasing more. You may notice that God is sharpening your discernment about people. Not everyone who wants access to you deserves influence over you. Wealth attracts voices, some wise, some manipulative. God is training you now to hear His voice above all others. Discernment is protection. Wisdom is preservation. When God elevates you, clarity becomes essential. Confusion is costly at higher levels. There will be moments when obedience feels lonely, when your decisions separate you from familiar paths, when you choose long-term purpose over short-term pleasure. Those moments are not punishment, they are confirmation. God often isolates those He intends to elevate so their confidence is anchored in Him alone. Dependence on God creates independence from approval. Let me say this with authority: God does not bless chaos. If your life is disordered, He will bring order before increase. Structure is not restriction, it is foundation. God builds systems, not accidents. He will teach you to manage time, energy, focus, and resources with intention. The discipline you develop now becomes the stability that sustains wealth later. You must also understand that generosity is not something you do after you become wealthy. It is something you practice on the way there. Generosity trains the heart to release. It breaks fear. It aligns you with God's flow. Those who hold tightly reveal mistrust. Those who release demonstrate confidence in God as the source. God entrusts more to those who prove they are channels, not containers. There will be seasons where God asks you to walk by conviction rather than evidence. Evidence comes later. Conviction comes first. Faith is not pretending challenges do not exist. It is choosing to obey God in spite of them. When you act in faith, you activate momentum. When momentum builds, opportunities appear. God responds to movement and on. Understand this clearly. Wealth does not exempt you from humility. It requires deeper humility. The higher God lifts you, the more grounded you must become. Arrogance repels wisdom. Humility attracts instruction. God teaches those who remain teachable. The moment you believe you have arrived is the moment growth stops. Some of you are being called to build things that will outlast you. Institutions, systems, solutions that serve generations. That level of impact requires sacrifice. It requires saying no to comfort, no to distraction, no to fear. God is not asking for perfection. He is asking for surrender. When you surrender your plans to God, He upgrades them. There is a sacred seriousness that comes with a word like this, and God is inviting you to treat it with reverence, not excitement alone. Excitement fades, but reverence sustains obedience. God is not merely stirring your emotions, He is awakening your responsibility. When God entrusts a future of great wealth, He also entrusts judgment, discernment, and accountability. Every decision becomes heavier. Every choice carries consequence. That is why God is teaching you to slow down your reactions and deepen your reflection. Wisdom is born in stillness, not haste. God is also teaching you to separate identity from outcome. You are not valuable because of what you will have. You are valuable because God chose you. Wealth will come and go, markets will shift, systems will change, but your identity must remain anchored in God alone. If your worth rises and falls with success, you will become unstable when pressure comes. God is anchoring you now so that future storms do not uproot you. Stability attracts trust, and trust attracts opportunity. Another truth many overlook is that God often uses delay to reveal motives. When progress is slow, hidden intentions surface. Are you still faithful when applause is absent? Are you still disciplined when reward feels distant? God is not impressed by ambition alone. He is moved by consistency. Those who remain steady when nothing seems to move prove they are ready when everything accelerates. Acceleration without stability leads to collapse. God refuses to build on weak foundations. God is also expanding your understanding of authority. Authority is not control, it is responsibility. When God elevates you, you become accountable not only for your actions, but for your influence. Words carry more weight. Decisions affect more lives. Silence can protect and speech can redirect. God is training you to speak with intention and to listen with discernment. Leadership at high levels is less about visibility and more about clarity. There will be moments when God challenges you to let go of good things to make room for greater ones. Attachment can become limitation if left unchecked. God may ask you to release ideas, habits, or paths that once served you well but no longer fit your future. Obedience sometimes feels like loss before it feels like gain. Trust the pro. God does not remove without replacing. He does not subtract without multiplying. You may also notice that God is refining your patience with people. As influence grows, so does exposure to different perspectives, temperaments, and intentions. God is teaching you to lead without becoming bitter, to correct without becoming harsh, and to protect boundaries without losing compassion. Emotional intelligence is not optional at higher levels of responsibility. God values how you treat people when you have power over outcomes. God is also preparing you to handle seasons of abundance without losing hunger. Hunger keeps vision alive. Comfort can quietly dull purpose if you are not vigilant. God is cultivating a continual dependence on Him so that success does not become a substitute for seeking Him. The moment you stop seeking God because things are going well is the moment decline begins. Sustained success requires sustained humility. There will be times when God allows you to face decisions that have no obvious right answer. In those moments, He is teaching you to rely on wisdom rather than formulas. Not everything can be reduced to strategy. Some decisions require spiritual sensitivity, patience, and courage. God is shaping you into someone who can navigate complexity without panic. Complexity is the environment of high-level leadership. God is also reminding you that legacy is built through obedience over time, not dramatic moments alone. Daily faithfulness compounds in lasting impact. Small decisions made consistently create large outcomes. Do not underestimate the power of routine obedience. God often hides greatness inside what feels ordinary. The discipline you practice quietly becomes the strength that sustains you publicly. You must also be prepared for moments when God's instructions contradict your preferences. Preference seeks comfort, obedience seeks alignment. God will not always explain why. He will ask you to trust who. Trust is the currency of relationship with God. When you trust Him without full clarity, you demonstrate maturity. Maturity invites greater responsibility. Another angle God is addressing is your relationship with failure. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is often part of the pathway. God uses setbacks to refine strategy, strengthen resolve, and deepen wisdom. Do not interpret temporary losses as permanent verdicts. God redeems what you learn from failure and repurposes it for future success. Shame paralyzes, but humility restores momentum. God is also sharpening your sense of stewardship beyond money. Time, energy, health, and focus are also resources. Wealth without health is burden. Success without peace is exhaustion. God desires wholeness, not imbalance. He is teaching you to honor limits, to rest with intention, and to sustain strength for the long journey ahead. Longevity matters to God. There will be seasons when God asks you to build quietly while others seem to advance faster. Comparison is a thief of clarity. God's timeline for you is intentional. Rushing to match others can lead you out of alignment. Stay faithful to your assignment. What God builds through you will be distinct, durable, and necessary. There is a refining fire that God allows before public fulfillment, and it is not meant to consume you but to clarify you. In this fire, intentions are exposed, motives are purified, and distractions lose their appeal. God is teaching you to want His will more than quick results. Desire that is not purified becomes dangerous when power arrives. That is why God is slowing some things down. Not to deny you, but to align you. Alignment is more valuable than speed because alignment sustains what speed cannot. God is also teaching you how to interpret silence. Silence from God is not absence, it is invitation. It is an invitation to trust what He has already spoken. When God goes quiet, He is not withdrawing, He is watching. Watching how you steward previous instructions. Watching whether you move by panic or by principle. Watching if your confidence is anchored in Him or in constant reassurance. Those who can remain faithful without constant confirmation are those God can trust with greater authority. Another dimension of this calling is restraint. God will give you opportunities to prove that you can say no, even when you have the power to say yes. Access does not mean entitlement. Influence does not mean indulgence. God is teaching you that restraint preserves credibility, the ability to walk away from compromise even when it is profitable, is a sign of readiness. Wealth gained at the cost of integrity always collects a debt later. God is protecting you from debts you cannot afford. God is also sharpening your ability to see beyond transactions and into transformation. Wealth in God's plan is not transactional, it is transformational. It changes environments, restores systems, and creates opportunity where despair once lived. God is opening your eyes to problems not as burdens, but as assignments. Where others see impossibility, you will see purpose. Where others retreat, you will feel responsibility. This shift in perception is evidence that your heart is aligning with God's intent. You may sense God challenging you to reevaluate success itself. Success is not merely accumulation, it is obedience fulfilled. It is living in alignment with what God entrusted to you. There are many who appear successful but are empty because they chased outcomes without calling. God is preserving you from that emptiness by rooting your ambition in purpose. Purpose gives meaning to pressure. Without purpose, pressure becomes unbearable. God is also training you to respond rather than react. Reaction is driven by emotion. Response is guided by wisdom. At higher levels of influence, emotional reactions create costly consequences. God is teaching you to pause, to weigh, to listen, and to act deliberately. Stillness is becoming your strength. Calm is becoming your advantage. When others panic, you will remain steady. Not because you lack concern, but because you trust God's guidance. Another angle God is shaping is your understanding of sacrifice. Sacrifice is not loss, it is exchange. You exchange what is temporary for what is eternal. You exchange comfort for calling. You exchange convenience for impact. God never wastes sacrifice when it is offered in obedience. Every sacrifice becomes a seed, and every seed carries multiplication. What you release today becomes provision tomorrow. God is also revealing the importance of boundaries. Love without boundaries becomes depletion. Service without boundaries becomes burnout. God is teaching you that protecting your capacity is not selfish. It is stewardship. You cannot serve many if you're constantly drained. God desires sustainability, not exhaustion. Learning when to rest, when to delegate, and when to withdraw is part of your preparation for long-term influence. There will be seasons when God allows misunderstanding to surround you. Not everyone will interpret your silence correctly. Not everyone will understand your decisions. But clarity does not come from being understood by people. It comes from being aligned with God. When you know God is leading you, misunderstanding loses its power. God often allows misinterpretation to free you from the need for approval. God is also reminding you that courage is not the absence of fear, it is obedience in spite of it. Courage, choosing God's instruction, even when the outcome is uncertain. Faith does not require certainty, it requires trust. and trust deepens every time you obey without seeing the full picture. God is building a history between you and Him. That history will become your confidence in future challenges. Another layer of preparation is learning to honor process without idolizing struggle. Struggle is not proof of faithfulness, and ease is not proof of compromise. God leads through both. What matters is obedience in every season. When things are difficult, remain faithful. When things become easier, remain humble. God desires consistency, not extremes. God is also calling you to cultivate gratitude at every level. Gratitude guards the heart from entitlement. It reminds you that everything you have passed through was sustained by God's hand. Gratitude keeps your spirit soft even as your influence grows. A grateful heart remains teachable. A grateful leader remains approachable. God is shaping you to lead with grace as well as authority. There will come a time when God asks you to take steps that feel irreversible, steps that close old chapters permanently. This can feel unsettling, but it is necessary. God cannot fully establish the new while you cling to the old. Trust Him enough to move forward without constantly looking back. What lies ahead requires your full attention. Let this truth remain alive within you. God's involvement in your life is intentional, detailed, and ongoing. He is not watching from a distance. He is actively guiding each stage. Even what feels like interruption is instruction. Even what feels like loss is preparation. Nothing is random when God is involved. So continue walking with conviction. Continue listening with sensitivity. Continue building with patience. God is shaping more than your future. He is shaping your impact. And as long as you remain aligned with Him, the promise spoken over your life will unfold with precision, depth, and lasting purpose. Now let this truth settle deep within you, beyond emotion and into conviction. God does not speak casually, and He does not declare futures He cannot sustain. When God said you will be a future billionaire, He was not describing a possibility. He was unveiling a responsibility. He was revealing the scale of trust He intends to place upon your life. This calling is not about excess, it is about assignment. It is not about status, it is about stewardship. God is shaping you into someone who can carry weight without losing balance, authority without losing humility, and influence without losing reverence. Everything you have walked through has been purposeful. Every delay trained endurance. Every disappointment sharpened discernment. Every closed door redirected you away from paths that could not sustain your future. God was never withholding, He was refining. What felt like waiting was preparation. What felt like pressure was positioning. God was aligning timing, maturity, wisdom, and capacity, so that when increase arrives, it does not crush you, but flows through you. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. God's work in you has been intentional and precise. He has been building depth before visibility, strength before speed, and wisdom before wealth. This is why your foundation will not crack when weight is added. This is why your influence will not fade when tested. God builds what lasts. Remain anchored in obedience. Let discipline become your language. Let humility guard your heart. Let generosity remain your posture. Let discernment guide your decisions. Let patience steady your steps. As long as God remains your source and not your substitute, provision will never outrun purpose. When you stay aligned with God, increase becomes sustainable and impact becomes inevitable. Carry this calling with reverence. Walk forward with courage. Build with integrity. Trust God beyond what you can see. What He has spoken over your life is already established, already protected, already in motion. And as you continue to walk in alignment, the future God declared will unfold with precision, authority, and lasting significance. God told me to warn you. And if you can still hear this, it is because mercy has not run out yet. Someone loves you so much, deeper than words, stronger than your failures, more patient than your delays. But here is the truth you have been avoiding. Love does not cancel truth, and love does not protect you from consequences. Love speaks when silence would destroy you. Love interrupts you when you are about to walk off a cliff smiling. And right now, love is speaking loudly, urgently, and without apology. You have been telling yourself that everything is fine because nothing has collapsed yet. You have been confusing delay with approval. You have mistaken patience for permission. God has been silent, and you thought that silence meant agreement, but silence is often mercy buying you time. Hear this clearly. Time is not unlimited. There is a moment when warnings turn into outcomes. There is a season when invitations turn into closed doors. God loves you enough to warn you before you learn through pain what you refuse to learn through truth. Someone loves you so much that you are still breathing after the mistakes you made in secret. Someone loves you so much that doors did not close when they should have, that opportunities still appear even though your heart has been divided. Someone loves you so much that even after your disobedience, you still wake up every morning with strength in your body and thoughts in your mind. But here is the truth you must face today. Love does not mean endorsement. Mercy does not mean approval. Kindness does not mean you can continue the same way and expect a different outcome. God sees the version of you that no one else sees. God sees what you justify, what you excuse, what you delay, and what you hide behind religious words and motivational quotes. You know how to speak faith, but God knows whether you live it. You know how to appear strong, but God knows where you are compromised. You know how to say the right words, but God knows the posture of your heart. And the truth is this: someone loves you so much that you are being warned before exposure comes, before loss comes, before regret becomes permanent. You have been telling yourself, I will change later. Later has become your favorite lie. Later has stolen more destinies than failure ever did. Later has destroyed more callings than fear ever did. Later sounds harmless, but later is the language of delay, and delay is how purpose bleeds quietly. God is not asking for perfection. God is asking for surrender. God is not demanding performance. God is demanding alignment. You keep trying to negotiate with truth instead of obeying it, and love is now confronting you because negotiation has expired. Someone loves you so much that even now, as you hear this, something inside you is stirring. That discomfort you feel is not condemnation, it is conviction. Condemnation pushes you away from God. Conviction pulls you back. Condemnation says you are finished. Conviction says you can still turn around. God is not trying to destroy you. God is trying to rescue what is left before you lose what matters most. But rescue only works if you stop running from the voice that is calling you. You have allowed people to define love for you based on how they make you feel. But God defines love based on what saves you. Feelings can lie. Emotions can shift. Desire can deceive, but truth remains even when it hurts. Someone loves you so much that you are being told the truth before your emotions lead you into a decision that will cost you years to recover from. Some of you are standing at the edge of a choice that looks small, but carries a heavy future. Love is warning you now, not after the damage is done. You keep saying God understands, and you are right. God understands everything. God understands your weakness, your wounds, your fears, your past. But understanding does not cancel responsibility. Compassion does not remove accountability. God understands why you are where you are. But God also knows where you could be if you obeyed. Love does not mean God will lower the standard. Love means God will help you rise to it. The truth is, you cannot keep asking God to bless what you refuse to correct. Someone loves you so much that you are being interrupted in your comfort. Comfort is dangerous when it replaces obedience. Comfort is seductive when it numbs conviction. Comfort makes you forget that you were created for more than survival. God did not design you to merely exist. You were designed to carry purpose, to walk in clarity, to live with integrity, to reflect truth in a world drowning in compromise. Love is now shaking your comfort because comfort has been keeping you stuck. You've been blaming people for what you allowed. You've been blaming circumstances for what you chose. You've been blaming the past for what you refuse to confront in the present. Someone loves you so much that excuses are no longer being accepted. God is not impressed by explanations. God responds to repentance. You do not need better reasons. You need a changed direction. Truth is not here to shame you. Truth is here to save you from yourself. Hear this carefully. Not everyone who loves you will tell you the truth, but God will always tell you what you need, not what you want. Some people keep you comfortable because they benefit from your silence. Some people affirm you because they fear losing you. Some people applaud you while you are walking toward loss because confronting you would cost them convenience. But God loves you too much to flatter you into destruction. That is why this warning feels sharp. That is why it feels urgent. That is why it refuses to sound soft. You have been praying for elevation while living in compromise. You have been asking for increase while ignoring instruction. You have been asking God to change your situation without allowing God to change your heart. And love is now exposing the gap between what you asked for and what you live out. God is not withholding from you. God is protecting you from receiving something you are not yet prepared to carry. Blessings magnify character. If your character is unstable, the blessing will become a burden. Someone loves you so much that you are being warned before success ruins you. You think failure is your biggest threat, but for many people, success without alignment is what destroys them. Success reveals who you really are. Success amplifies your habits. Success removes excuses. God is not delaying you to punish you. God is preparing you so that when you arrive, you do not self-destruct. But preparation requires humility. And humility begins with admitting the truth. You know what God has been asking you to let go of. You know the habit, the relationship, the mindset, the secret agreement you made with yourself. You know the thing you keep justifying because you are afraid of who you will be without it. Someone loves you so much that you are being told this now, what you are holding on to. O is holding you back. What you call comfort is costing you clarity. What you call freedom is slowly enslaving you. Love is not silent anymore because the cost has become too high. God sees how tired you are pretending. God sees the weight of maintaining an image that does not match your inner life. God sees the exhaustion that comes from living divided. Truth simplifies your life. Obedience brings rest. Alignment brings peace. The reason you feel restless is not because you are weak. It is because you are misaligned. Someone loves you so much that rest is being offered, but rest is only found on the other side of surrender. You have been waiting for a sign, but this is the sign. You have been asking for clarity, but this is clarity. You have been asking God to speak, and this is the voice you asked for, even if it is not the tone you expected. Love does not always whisper. Sometimes love shouts because danger is near. God is not raising the volume to scare you. God is raising the volume to reach you before it is too late to turn back easily. Stop telling yourself that you are too far gone. That is a lie designed to keep you stuck. Stop telling yourself that you have more time. That assumption has cost many people everything. Stop telling yourself that God will understand later. God understands now, and that is why you are being warned now. Someone loves you so much that restoration is still possible, but restoration requires honesty. You cannot heal what you refuse to adjam. It is broken. You are not hearing this by accident. This is not random. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. God arranges moments like this because moments shape destinies. One decision can shift a lifetime. One act of obedience can undo years of delay. One moment of humility can reopen doors you thought were permanently closed. Love is inviting you into that moment right now. But the invitation requires a response. You have been strong for everyone else, but you have avoided being honest with yourself. You have been giving advice while ignoring instruction. You have been encouraging others while neglecting your own soul. God sees the imbalance, and love is calling you back to integrity. Integrity is not perfection. Integrity is alignment between belief and behavior. God is not asking you to become someone else. God is asking you to return to who you were created to be. Someone loves you so much that you are being reminded of your worth, not to inflate your ego, but to restore your direction. You are too valuable to live distracted. You are too significant to live compromised. You are too called to live careless. God does not warn what God does not value. The warning itself is proof of love. If God had given up on you, there would be no warning at all. You must understand this truth. Every warning is also an invitation. An invitation to turn, an invitation to realign, an invitation to choose life over comfort, truth over convenience, purpose over pleasure. Love is not forcing you, love is inviting you. God will not drag you into obedience, but God will clearly show you where each path leads. One path leads to growth, peace, and fulfillment. The other leads to regret, loss, and unnecessary pain. Love is telling you this before the consequences become irreversible. You cannot keep asking God to remove what you secretly enjoy. You cannot keep praying for deliverance while feeding the very thing you want to escape. Someone loves you so much that your double-mindedness is being confronted. Decide, choose, align. Indecision is still a decision, and neutrality always favors destruction. God is calling you out of the middle, out of excuses, out of delay. You were not created to live warned forever. You were created to live aligned. Warnings are temporary, but outcomes are permanent. Love is patient, but love is also honest. Love will wait, but love will not lie. God is not threatening you, God is protecting you. God is not angry with you, God is serious about you. There is a difference, and understanding that difference can save your future. Right now, you can either harden your heart or humble it. You can either scroll past this moment or let it mark you. You can either defend your choices or examine them. Someone loves you so much that the choice is still yours. God respects your will even when your will is hurting you. But do not confuse patience with indifference. Do not confuse mercy with absence. Do not confuse love with silence. As is the truth you needed to hear. Love has been covering you, but love will not cover what you refuse to change forever. God has been shielding you, but shields are not meant to enable recklessness. Shields are meant to give you time to learn, to grow, to turn. Time is what you have been given, and time is what you must now honor. You are closer than you think, closer to breakthrough or closer to breakdown, depending on what you do with this truth. The distance between the two is obedience. Someone loves you so much that this distance is being revealed to you now. Do not waste this moment. Do not minimize this warning. Do not delay this decision. Alignment is calling. Truth is speaking. Mercy is waiting. And God is watching what you will do with what you have just been given as your heart continues to wrestle, your mind continues to process, and your spirit continues to recognize that this voice is not here to condemn you, but to pull you back before the cost becomes heavier than it ever needed to be, and before the love that warned you has to watch you learn the hard way what you were told in advance. Do not misunderstand what is happening inside you right now. That tightening in your chest, that quiet unrest, that sudden clarity mixed with resistance. That is not fear and it is not guilt. That is truth pressing against the walls you built to protect yourself from change. Truth does not ask permission to enter. It confronts you because it cares too much to stay outside. God is not exposing you to embarrass you. God is illuminating you so you can finally see where you have been walking in the dark while convincing yourself you could see just fine. You have been strong for so long that you forgot what it feels like to be honest. Strength without honesty becomes pride. Strength without humility becomes isolation. Strength without surrender becomes a burden you were never meant to carry alone. God never asked you to carry life by yourself. You chose that when you stopped trusting that obedience would not cost you everything you feared losing. But here is the truth love is revealing now. What you are afraid to lose is already draining you, and what you are afraid to surrender is already weakening you. God sees how you built your life around control. Control over people, control over outcomes, control over how much of yourself you reveal. Control feels safe, but it is a fragile illusion. The more you control, the more anxious you become. The more you grip, the more peace slips away. God is calling you out of control and into trust, not because God wants to limit you, but because control is limiting what God can do through you. Surrender is not weakness. Surrender is alignment with a power greater than your own effort. Someone loves you so much that you are being warned about where this road ends. You may not see destruction yet, but seeds always grow in silence before they break the surface. Every choice plants something. Every habit waters something. Every delay allows something to take deeper root. God is not only concerned with what you are doing now, but with what it is producing later. Love is speaking because the harvest you are moving toward does not match the future you keep praying for. You cannot build a life of truth on a foundation of half obedience. Partial surrender creates internal conflict. You feel torn because you are divided. One part of you wants God's direction, and another part wants personal comfort. One part wants purpose, and another part wants pleasure. One part wants peace, and another part wants control. God is not confused about you, but you have been confused about yourself. Love is now demanding clarity because divided lives eventually collapse under their own weight. God knows every promise you made in moments of desperation. God remembers the words you spoke when you were desperate enough to be honest. But when relief came, you slowly returned to familiar patterns, telling yourself you would deal with the deeper issues later. Later has become a graveyard of unfulfilled intentions. Love is now calling you back to the promises you made when you could no longer pretend you were fine. God did not forget those moments. God is reminding you of who you were when your heart was still soft. You have been surviving on inspiration instead of transformation. Inspiration excites you, but it does not change you. Transformation requires obedience when emotions are quiet and no one is watching. God is not interested in temporary motivation. God is committed to lasting change. That is why this message does not just energize you, it confronts you. Love that only excites you fades quickly. Love that transforms you reshapes your future. You must understand this. God does not warn everyone. Warnings are reserved for those who still have something to protect. The warning itself is evidence that your story is not finished. If destruction were inevitable, there would be silence. If loss were unavoidable, there would be distance. But you are hearing truth because God is still invested in your direction. Love is still active. Mercy is still present. Opportunity is still within reach. Stop measuring your life by comparison. Comparison blinds you to conviction. You look at others who seem worse and convince yourself you are doing fine. But God does not compare you to others. God compares you to the calling placed within you. You are not judged by someone else's standard. You are measured by what you know to be true. And deep down, you know where you have been compromising. Love is not pointing fingers at others. It is pointing inward, because real change always begins there. You have been asking God to remove pressure, but pressure is revealing what needs to change. Pressure exposes where faith is shallow and where trust is strong. Pressure shows you what you truly rely on when comfort disappears. God does not waste pressure. God uses it to refine you. Love is not removing the sure, yet because the pressure is producing clarity, and clarity is preparing you for a decision that will shape the next chapter of your life. God sees how you feel losing people if you change. But the truth is, anything that requires you to disobey God in order to keep it was never meant to stay. Love that pulls you away from truth is not love, it is attachment. God is not asking you to walk alone. God is asking you to stop walking in the wrong direction just to avoid being alone. Alignment may cost you relationships that were built on compromise, but it will open space for connections rooted in truth. You are not being asked to become cold, harsh, or disconnected. You are being asked to become honest, grounded, and aligned. Obedience does not make you less loving. It makes your love cleaner. It removes manipulation, fear, and hidden agendas. God-centered love does not beg to be accepted. It stands firm in truth and lets the results unfold. Someone loves you so much that you are being invited into that kind of freedom. You have been living with low-grade guilt, calling it normal. You have been living with quiet unrest, calling it stress. You have been living with spiritual numbness, calling it maturity. But numbness is not growth. Silence is not peace. Avoidance is not wisdom. Love is now stripping away the false names you gave your discomfort and revealing its true cause, misalignment between what you believe and how you live. God does not shame you for where you are. God will not lie to you about where you are going if nothing changes. Truth is not cruel. Truth is kind, because it tells you the outcome before you arrive there. Someone loves you so much that the future consequences are being revealed while you still have time to choose differently. This is not about fear. This is about foresight. You do not need a dramatic moment to turn around. You need a decisive one. A quiet, firm decision that says, this ends here, not tomorrow, not after one more attempt, not after one more excuse. Now, alignment does not require noise, it requires resolve. God honors decisive hearts because decisive hearts are ready to be led. Stop underestimating what one obedient decision can do. Obedience creates momentum. Momentum changes direction. Direction determines destiny. You do not change your life by wishing differently. You change your life by choosing differently. Love is not asking you to fix everything at once. Love is asking you to take the next right step with integrity. God knows you are afraid of failing again. That fear has kept you from trying fully. You chose partial commitment because it felt safer than wholehearted surrender. But partial commitment guarantees frustration. God would rather you stumble forward in obedience than stand still in fear. Love is not demanding flawless execution. Love is calling for honest effort and a willing heart. You are not behind because God delayed you. You are behind because you delayed obedience. But hear this clearly. Delay does not cancel destiny if you respond when truth arrives. Redemption is not limited by time. It is activated by humility. Someone loves you so much that redemption is still available, still accessible, still possible. Right now, let this truth settle deeply. God is not asking you to impress anyone. God is asking you to align with truth when no one is watching. The private decision matters more than the public appearance. The unseen choice shapes the visible future. Love is shifting your focus from performance to obedience, from image to integrity. You have carried this warning long enough to know it is real. Do not turn it into background noise. Do not let familiarity steal its urgency. This moment is not meant to entertain you. It is meant to transform you. God is closer than you think, not waiting with anger, but standing with truth, inviting you to step into clarity, peace, and alignment that you cannot achieve any other way. Someone loves you so much that even after all this, the door is still open. But open doors still require movement. Truth has been spoken. Light has been given. The next move belongs to you. And God is watching not with condemnation, but with expectation, knowing that the same love that warned you is ready to strengthen you the moment you choose to walk forward in obedience, honesty, and full surrender. There is something you must confront that you have been avoiding, and it is this: God is not only concerned with what you do, but with what you tolerate. What you tolerate teaches your soul what is acceptable. What you tolerate slowly becomes normal, and what becomes normal eventually becomes permanent, unless it is challenged. Love is challenging you now, because tolerance has been shaping you more than truth. You did not fall into this place suddenly. You drifted there quietly. One unchecked thought, one ignored conviction, one compromised decision at a time. God is not accusing you. God is awakening you. You have been saying you want peace, but you have been feeding inner conflict. You have been asking for clarity while keeping confusion close. Peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is the presence of alignment. When your actions and beliefs are divided, peace cannot stay. God is not withholding peace from you. Peace withdraws when integrity is absent. Love is restoring peace by restoring truth, even if that truth disrupts your comfort first. Understand this deeply: God does not want you to scare you into obedience. God wants you to awaken your conscience before your heart grows numb. A numb heart is dangerous because it no longer feels the weight of decisions. When conscience becomes quiet, destruction does not look alarming anymore. It looks reasonable. Love is making your conscience loud again, because numbness is more dangerous than struggle. Struggle keeps you seeking. Numbness makes you settle. You have mistaken endurance for approval. Just because you survive something does not mean it was right. Just because nothing collapsed does not mean nothing is wrong. God has carried you through situations that should have broken you, not to validate your choices, but to give you time to learn. Love carried you, but love will not excuse what you refuse to confront. Survival is not success. Endurance is not endorsement. God is calling you to examine not just your actions, but your motives. You have done some right things for the wrong reasons and avoided some right things because of fear. Motives matter because they determine direction. You can move forward physically while moving backward spiritually. Love is correcting your direction, not just your behavior. God is not interested in surface-level change. God is committed to heart-level alignment. There are areas where you have been spiritually careless, telling yourself it does not matter. But everything matters because everything shapes you. Small compromises do not stay small. They multiply quietly until one day you wake up and do not recognize yourself. Love is interrupting that process now. God is reminding you that your soul is too valuable to be shaped by neglect. You keep asking God to reveal your purpose, but purpose is revealed through obedience, not curiosity. Purpose unfolds as you walk in truth, not as you wait for certainty. God does not reveal the full path to those who refuse the first step. Love is asking you to move with what you already know instead of waiting for what you want to know. Reverend, elation follows obedience, not the other way around. God sees the inner arguments you have been having, the debates you hold with yourself to justify staying the same. You argue because you know the truth, but fear the cost of obeying it. But hear this, obedience may cost you comfort, but disobedience will cost you clarity, peace, and eventually direction. Love is showing you the real cost before you pay it blindly. You are not weak because you feel resistance. You are human. Resistance always shows up when change threatens familiar patterns. But resistance does not mean stop. It means you are at the edge of transformation. God never promised obedience would feel easy, but God promised it would lead to life. Love is strengthening you, not to avoid the struggle, but to walk through it with courage. There is a difference between waiting on God and hiding behind patience. Waiting is active trust. Hiding is passive delay. God is not asking you to wait anymore in the area you already understand. Love is asking you to act with wisdom and courage. Waiting becomes disobedience when truth is already clear. Do not call delay spiritual maturity. Call it what it is and let it in. God is inviting you to a deeper level of accountability, not condemnation. Accountability protects what matters. Boundaries protect growth. Discipline protects destiny. You have resisted discipline because it felt restrictive, but discipline is not a cage, it is a guardrail. Love installs guardrails before the fall, not after. God is placing them now because the path ahead requires stability. You must also understand that God's love for you does not exempt you from correction, it ensures it. Correction is not rejection, correction is investment. Only what is valued is corrected. Only what has potential is refined. God corrects you because your future matters more than your comfort. Love looks beyond the moment and speaks to the outcome. You have been measuring your faith by how much you feel, but faith is proven by how you respond to truth. Feelings change, truth remains. Obedience does not depend on emotion, it depends on conviction. Love is anchoring you in conviction so that when emotions fluctuate, your direction does not. God is also warning you about isolation. You have withdrawn emotionally, spiritually, and sometimes even physically, telling yourself you need space. Space can heal, but isolation can harden. God did not design you to grow alone. Love is urging you to step back into honest connection, not with everyone, but with those who value truth more than comfort. You are not meant to carry unresolved conviction forever. Conviction is meant to lead you to change, not to haunt you. If conviction lingers, it is because action has been delayed. Love wants to lift that weight from you, but the weight only lifts when obedience begins. God is offering relief through alignment, not escape through avoidance. There is also a truth about forgiveness you need to hear. Forgiven. Yourself begins with agreeing with God about what needs to change. Self-forgiveness without transformation becomes self-deception. God does not shame you for your past, but God does not ignore patterns that will repeat it. Love is breaking cycles, not just covering moments. You may feel unqualified to respond to this call, but qualification comes from obedience, not perfection. God uses willing hearts more than flawless records. Your availability matters more than your history. Love is not asking you to prove yourself. Love is asking you to trust that obedience will shape you into who you need to become. Right now, your future is leaning in one direction or another, not because of fate, not because of chance, but because of choice. Choices are quiet architects of destiny. They work silently, but build permanently. Love is giving you a moment to choose again, with clarity instead of confusion, with courage instead of fear. God is not rushing you, but God is serious. Serious about your integrity, serious about your growth, serious about the impact your life is meant to have. You were never meant to live distracted, divided, or dulled. You were created to live awake, aligned, and anchored in truth. Love is calling you back to that state, not with condemnation, but with authority and care. Do not reduce this moment to emotion. Let it become resolve. Let it become direction. Let it become the turning point where you stop negotiating with truth and start walking in it. God has already gone ahead of you, not to trap you, but to lead you. The path of obedience is not empty, it is prepared. Someone loves you so much that this call is still reaching you. That love is not fragile. It is strong enough to correct you, patient enough to wait for you, and powerful enough to restore you when you respond. The only thing left undecided is whether you will answer this love with humility and action, or whether you will silence it again and continue forward unchanged, knowing deep inside that you were warned, invited, and given the chance to choose alignment while the door was still open and the voice of truth was still calling your name. Now let this truth settle without resistance. This is not a moment to analyze, explain, or postpone. This is a moment to decide. God has not spoken to confuse you, but to clarify you. God has not warned you to burden you, but to free you. Everything you have felt while hearing this, every stirring, every discomfort, every realization has been an invitation to return to alignment. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now, while your heart is still sensitive and your conscience is still awake, you are standing at a sacred intersection where mercy and responsibility meet. One path allows you to keep managing appearances while slowly losing direction. The other path requires humility, courage, and obedience, but it leads to peace, clarity, and restored strength. God will not force you down either path, because forced obedience produces resentment, not transformation. But love has made the paths visible so that whatever you choose with awareness. Do not underestimate how much can change when you choose truth over comfort. Obedience rearranges everything quietly. It heals what motivation never could. It stabilizes what emotions kept shaking. It restores what delay kept draining. God does not need years to change your direction. God needs willingness. A sincere decision made in humility can shift seasons that felt permanently stuck. You are not responding to a message. You are responding to love that refuses to abandon you. God has seen your struggle, your fatigue, your silent questions, and your private compromises, and still chose to warn you instead of walking away. That alone should tell you how much value has been placed on your life. You are not disposable, you are not overlooked, you are not forgotten. You are being called higher because you were created for more than survival. Let go of the fear that obedience will strip you of joy. Truth does not steal joy, it purifies it. Let go of the fear that alignment will make you lose yourself. Alignment Riev. Als who you were always meant to be. Let go of the fear that it is too late. As long as you can still hear truth, it is not too late. Silence would mean distance, but this moment proves closeness. You do not need to announce this decision to the world. You do not need to dramatize it. You only need to honor it. Let your next steps reflect what your heart has just acknowledged. Let your choices agree with what you now know. Let your life quietly testify that you heard the warning and chose wisdom over pride. God is not standing far away, waiting to judge your response. God is near, ready to strengthen you the moment you turn, ready to guide you the moment you align, ready to restore what compromise weakened and what delay postponed. The same love that warned you will sustain you. The same truth that confronted you will protect you. This is where hesitation ends and obedience begins. This is where excuses lose their power and clarity takes their place. This is where you stop drifting and start walking with intention. God has spoken because you matter, because your future matters, and because love refuses to stay silent when destiny is at risk. And now, with truth placed before you and mercy still within reach, the choice is yours to walk forward aligned, awake, and anchored in God.